Hello, class. Okay, sorry for bothering you or for disturbing your academic break right now. But according to the memorandum number 71 na binigay sa amin, we are tasked na mag-comply sa learning outcomes intended for week 12. Okay? Or yung sakop ng ating ACAD break. So, we are tasked to provide video lectures, yung dapat na lesson natin for that week or yung mga activities for that week or case analysis for that week. Okay? So, here's a video lecture na dapat ay i-discuss natin. Okay? Nung walang ACAD break. Okay? But because you have your ACAD break, so we are tasked to provide a video lecture about these lessons, about these topics. Okay? Okay, class. So for our lesson 8, we will discuss the sexual self, the body image, and the self-esteem. So sexual selfhood, this is how one thinks about himself or herself as a sexual individual. Okay? Paano mo na-perceive ang sarili mo as someone who is sexual individual? And we have different factors. We have the historical, biological, sociobiological or evolutionary, psychological, and religious. So, isahin muna natin. Okay, isa-isahin natin. Let's start with historical. Historical, during the ancient Greece, okay, ang male ang merong dominant role. Okay? Yung reproductive system ng lalaki or yung penis, okay, it is a symbol of fertility. Again, male has the dominant role during the ancient Greece. And yung penis nila, that is the symbol of fertility. And yung mga wives, okay, yung mga babae, during that time, are considered as objects to be possessed just like property. Okay, so para lang silang object. And the only function of their wives is just to bear children. Okay, wala silang dapat gawin. Dapat lang silang manganak. Okay, kaya dito nagsimula yung word na gyne, which is the bearer of children. Okay, so that is ancient Greece. Next, we have the Middle Ages. Middle Ages, dito naman nagkaroon ng strong influence of the church. And they believe that all sexual acts that do not lead to procreation were considered evil, and the women were labeled as either temptress or a woman of virtue. So during Middle Ages, napakalaking impluwensya na ng simbahan. And sinasabi nila, ay ng mga tao during this time, during the Middle Ages, sinasabi nila na lahat ng sexual act, sexual behavior na hindi nagli-lead, okay? Hindi nagli-lead sa procreation, okay, or reproduction, were considered as evil, okay? Makasalanan, sexual acts. And during those time, ang babae ay nililabel nila as either temptress, kagaya ni Eve, or woman of virtue, kagaya ni Virgin Mary. Okay, so that is historical, specifically Middle Ages. Next, we have the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century, and yung mga Protestant leaders dito ay sina Martin Luther, sina John Calvin, and yung marami pang iba. Okay? So dahil nga, 'di ba, during the Middle Ages, napakalaking impluwensya ng simbahan. Okay? Na sinasabi nila lahat ng sexual acts na hindi nagli-lead sa procreation or reproduction ay masama. So, kinontrast ito ng mga Protestant leaders, okay, dahil sinasabi nila na sexuality, this is a natural part of life. Natural lang na ikaw ay gumawa ng mga gantong bagay. Okay? And sinasabi din ng mga Protestant leaders na dapat din daw yung mga pare, they should be able to marry and have families. Kasi dahil ang sexuality ay natural part of life lang. Okay? And they considered as sexual intimacy, hindi lang daw ito for physical, okay, physical pleasure sa mag-asawa, but sexual intimacy also provides emotional bond between husbands and wives. Okay, so that is the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century. Next, we have the 17th and 18th century. So, ang namayagpag naman dito sa century na to ay si yung mga Puritans, okay? Ano po yung mga Puritans? Yung mga Puritans, they are a group of people who were discontented with the Church of England, rallied for religious, moral, and societal reformation. Okay? Yung mga Puritans, hindi satisfied sa beliefs ng church. Okay? So, dahil nga sinasabi ng church na kapag yung sexual acts na ginagawa mo ay hindi nagli-lead sa procreation, it is considered as evil. And sa Puritans naman, they have positive view on marital sex and did not tolerate sex outside marriage. Ibig sabihin, dapat kapag ikaw ay gagawa ng mga sexual acts, dapat ikaw ay married. Okay? Kailangan ikaw ay nasa isang marriage. Okay? At yung mga sexual acts na ginagawa outside marriage, that is considered as immoral. Okay? So, dito naman sa century na to, 17th and 18th century, may touch of society. Okay? Naniniwala pa din sa belief ng church, pero may touch na ng society. Diba kung sa church, considered as evil. Dito naman, sa era na to, premarital sex was considered as immoral. Okay? May touch ng society. Okay, so sila ang mga Puritans, group of people who were discontented with the Church of England, and they have positive view on marital sex. Next, we have the Victorian era, okay, wherein homosexuality and prostitution were rampant and considered to be threats to social order. So, yung panahon nitong Victorian era, very rampant, okay? Maraming homosexual, okay, maraming prostitutes during this time, during this era. And sinasabi na yung mga tao daw, yung mga tao daw na ito ay considered as threats to social order. Okay? Dapat daw sila daw ay parang danger sa social order kasi yung social order kapag ikaw ay mayaman, ikaw ay mahirap, right? So they are considered as threats to social order. And during this Victorian era, people were not comfortable in discussing breast or buttocks. So hindi sila during this Victorian era, hindi sila open, okay, na pag-usapan yung mga breast or buttocks or body parts, sensitive body parts, okay? During this time, bad words sa kanila yung mga gantong terms. Kapag sinabi mo ito, okay, kapag sinabi mo ito yung mga words na to, ikaw ay titingnan ng masama kasi parang ang sama-sama mong tao because they were not comfortable in discussing these sensitive body parts. Okay, so that is during Victorian era. And last from historical is the 20th century, wherein sexuality become more evident and accepted in society. So dito, mas na-accept na natin na meron tayong iba't ibang sexuality. Okay, we are now open. And yung separation of church and state, di ba? From previous yung mga naunang periods, yung mga naunang era, 'di ba? Ang lakas ng influence ng church and ng state. But now, nahiwalay na. Okay? Nahiwalay na yung church and state. Magkaiba na yung beliefs nila, magkaiba na yung values. Also, during this time, nagkaroon ng rise of feminism. Okay? Nagkaroon na ng power ang mga babae. Hindi na gaya ng dati na pangbahay lang, okay, hindi nagwo-work, just to bear children, right? So, nagkaroon na ng rise of feminism. And also, the cultural diversity and social norms offered varied of views. So, marami nang nadi-discuss, okay? Nagiging open na ang lahat sa iba't ibang views ng tao. Next is biological. Okay, biological structures and functions of the reproductive system. Okay, we have different reproductive system. Ibang sa babae at ibang sa lalaki. Brain that initiates and organizes sexual behavior. So, yung brain natin, siya yung responsible. Okay, responsible siya yung nag-i-initiate and organizes sexual behavior. Okay? And yung ating tinatawag na sexual reproduction, that is the fusion of egg cell and sperm cell. Next, we have the sociobiological or evolutionary. So, yung tinatawag nating natural selection, it is a process by which organisms that are best suited to their environment are most likely to survive. Ibig sabihin lang nito is yung survival of the fittest. So, natural selection, yung mga tao lang or yung mga organisms na nakaka-survive, okay? Nakaka-adapt sa kanilang environment, yun lang yung most likely to survive. Okay? Sila yung fit sa environment. Sila lang yung nakaka-survive. That is natural selection. Beauty is more than just cultural standard. Okay? So, hindi lang siya more on cultural standard kasi nga, again, we have different definition of beauty. Okay? Beauty is subjective. Physical attraction, which ends in sex, does not mean that the attraction will be lasting. Okay? So, naniniwala ang mga evolutionarists na yung physical attraction daw na nagli-lead or nag-e-end sa sex ay hindi naman daw naglalast. Okay? The attraction will not last. Okay? Next, we have psychological. And we have, according kay Rosenthal, 2013, sexuality is not a mere physical response. Okay? Hindi lang pang physical pleasure ang sexuality. Again, it can be emotional, it can be psychological also. Okay? And according kay Sigmund Freud, again, napag-aralan na natin to from our previous lessons, right? Eros and Thanatos, life instinct and death instinct, or sex and aggression. Naniniwala si Sigmund Freud that our behaviors, ang mga behavior ng tao, are driven by two instincts. It can lead to sex and it can also lead to aggression. Meron din tayong tinatawag na erogenous zones. Itong erogenous zones, these are body parts, okay, part ng ating katawan wherein we experience pleasure. Okay, nakakaramdam tayo ng pleasure. That is erogenous zones. Also, we have the three structures of the mind, the id, ego, and superego. Id, this is the pleasure principle. Ito yung nagsasabi na gawin mo to kasi masaya ka. Gawin mo to kasi makaka-experience ka ng pleasure. Superego is the moral principle. Wag mong gawin yan kasi may consequences yan. Wag mong gawin yan kasi ganito yung mangyayari sa'yo. Okay? Moral principle. And last is the ego, the reality principle. Siya yung nagko-control sa id and superego. It analyzes kung ano ba talaga yung dapat unahin, ano ba yung dapat gawin. Ego. Okay? So that is psychological. Next, we will move on sa religious. Okay, iba't ibang religion naman na may sinasabi sa sexuality. First is Judaism. Positive and natural outlook towards marital sex. Yung mga persons, okay, na nagpa-practice ng Judaism, they have positive and natural outlook toward marital sex. Ibig sabihin, dapat ikaw ay kasal bago ikaw mag-engage sa mga sexual behaviors. Okay? And blessed by God and pleasurable for both men and women. Para sa kanila, kapag ikaw ay kasal, okay, may basbas na. Okay, may basbas na ng God yung pleasure na nararamdaman ng both men and women. And the sexual connection provides an opportunity for spirituality and transcendence. Okay? And yung sexual connection between the men and the woman, okay? Yung nasa kasal na sila, ha? Marital sex na. Yung sexual connection, it provides an opportunity, okay, for spirituality and transcendence. Next, we have Islam, which is family is considered as utmost importance. Pinaka-importante ang pamilya. And Muslim men are allowed to have up to 4 wives, but Muslim women can only have 1 husband. Okay? Diba? So, yung mga Muslim men, sila ay pwedeng mag-asawa hanggang 4. Pero yung mga babae na Muslim, they can only have 1 husband. Isa lang. Okay? And sex is permitted only within marriage and extramarital sex is penalized. Ibig sabihin, kailangan kasal ka lang. Okay? Kasal ka muna bago ka mag-engage sa mga sexual behaviors. And kapag gumawa ka ng sexual behaviors outside marriage, ikaw ay paparusahan. Okay? So that is according sa beliefs ng Islam. Next, we have the Taoism. Taoism, they believe that sex is not only natural and healthy. It is a sacred union which is necessary to people's physical, mental, and spiritual being. So, di ba ang Taoism, ang main concept niya is yin-yang. Okay? So, kailangan balance lang ang buhay. And sinasabi nila ng mga Taoist that sex is not only natural and healthy, pero ito ay kailangan, okay? It is a need, it is necessary para sa ating physical and mental spiritual being. Okay? Kailangan daw natin siya. Okay? And it forms a balance between male and female energy, yin-yang. Okay? So that is Taoism. Next, we have the Hinduism, wherein they believe that sexuality is seen as spiritual force. Okay? Spiritual force daw ito. At yung act of ritual lovemaking is a means of both celebrating and transcending the physical. So, yung sexuality, according sa mga Hinduist, ito daw ay isang spiritual force na ginagawa upang mag-celebrate, okay, to transcend yung physical body. Okay? Parang nagpapasalamat ka na meron kang physical body. Okay? It is part of the ritual lovemaking. Okay? So that is according to Hinduism. And last, we have the Roman Catholic Church, wherein intercourse and procreation is only limited within marriage. So, kailangan kasal ka bago ka muna mag-engage sa mga sexual acts. Homosexual orientation in itself is not sinful, but homosexual acts are immoral and sinful. According to them, na homosexual orientation is not sinful. Hindi naman daw yon makasalanan. But yung homosexual acts, that is daw immoral and sinful. Okay? And the use of birth control is strongly opposed, but they agree to natural family planning and prohibit abortion. So, pinagbabawal nila ang gumamit ng birth control and ang pag-engage or pag-abort, okay? But they agree to natural family planning. Okay, so that is Roman Catholic Church. Next, we will understand the development of secondary sex characteristics and reproductive system. Okay, so before I proceed sa ating discussion proper, I will just like to remind you na yung ating mga pag-aaralan sa mga susunod na lessons, because our topic is about sexual self, okay, sexual selfhood. So, yung mga topics na pag-aaralan natin is about body parts, okay? So, I believe kayo ay mga matatanda na, kayo ay open-minded na sa topics na ganito. Okay, so let's take this as a learning. Okay, so yon, let's start the discussion. So, our bodies are made mainly of water. Okay, so ang katawan natin ay gawa daw sa water, and the elements of our body are organized into cells, tissues, and organs. And yung related organs are combined into systems. Okay, we have reproductive system, nervous system. Okay, so that is our body composition. Next, we have reproduction, and we have two types of reproduction. We have the asexual and the sexual reproduction. First is the asexual. This is the simplest form of reproduction. Okay, walang sexual act na nangyayari. Okay, it is the simplest form. It can be from single-celled animal or the multi-celled asexual organism. So, single-celled animal, it grows to a certain stage or size and divides into two identical organisms. So, nag-grow lang siya, okay, into specific or into certain stage or size. Tapos nag-divide siya into two identical organisms. Okay, that is single-celled. Multi-celled naman develop several unique reproductive strategies. So, to better understand paano po ba yung asexual reproduction, let's watch this video presentation.
Do you agree that every living thing needs two parents to be created? This is actually incorrect. Whilst we are more familiar with sexual reproduction involving two parents, asexual reproduction only needs one parent. All the offspring are clones. They are genetically identical to one another and to their parent. You may already know that many plants use asexual reproduction, like spider plants. But did you know that bacteria reproduce asexually in a process called binary fission? And even some animals use asexual reproduction. It is much less common, but is seen in some simple ones like hydra, aphids, and starfish. In fact, aphids can produce 600 billion offspring in one season by using asexual reproduction. But how does this work? Asexual reproduction does not involve sex cells or fertilization. Only one parent is involved, and so there is no fusion of gametes and no mixing of genetic information. The offspring are all clones. Sexual reproduction occurs using normal cell division known as mitosis. To learn all about this, watch our video on mitosis. In plants, it can happen in a number of different ways. Potatoes and daffodils, for example, develop underground food storage organs that the following year will detach and develop into new plants. The spider plant produces plantlets along branches that are clones, as do strawberries on runners. Hydra are multicellular animals. They use budding to reproduce asexually. Little buds grow on the outside of the parent and then break off to form separate individuals. Starfish can either split in half, in which each half develops new arms to form a full starfish, or, if a starfish loses an arm, it will regrow that arm and the lost arm will over time develop further arms itself, turning into a complete starfish. Bacteria have the simplest process of all. They just divide as seen in mitosis to form two identical individuals. One major advantage of asexual reproduction is that populations can increase rapidly, as we saw with the 600 billion aphid offspring. They don't have to waste time and energy finding a mate. Also, by being clones, they can exploit a suitable habitat quickly. They fill the niches, making it harder for predators and competitors to invade. However, it also comes with disadvantages. As everyone is a clone, there is no genetic variation. If the climate or selection pressures change, then the population will be much slower to adapt, as there is no diversity. By being identical, the population is best suited to only that one habitat, and all have the same vulnerability to disease. The same traits also mean the same weaknesses. If a predator or disease adapts to kill one individual, then they can take out the entire population, resulting in extinction. So genetic variation has a lot of merits. Interestingly, some organisms can combine both sexual and asexual reproduction depending on the circumstances. Malarial parasites reproduce asexually in the human host, but sexually in the mosquito. Many fungi reproduce asexually by spores, but also reproduce sexually to give variation. Many plants produce seeds sexually, but also reproduce asexually by means of runners, such as the strawberry plant, or bulb division, such as daffodils. And even the aphids alternate between sexual and asexual reproduction, asexually in the spring and summer, and then sexually in the winter, as the eggs can survive the cold better. So there we have asexual reproduction. It only requires one parent, meaning population can grow very quickly, and everyone is a clone of one another. It is more commonly seen in plants and bacteria, but can also occur in simple animals like starfish, aphids, and hydra.
Next, we have the sexual reproduction wherein we reproduce sexually. Okay, may sexual act na nangyayari. Males and females, and reproduction occurs when partners come together. And the reproductive cells ay nabubuo by the combination of female ovum or yung egg cell and the male sperm. Okay? So, to better understand the concept of sexual reproduction, we will watch this video presentation.
In this video, we will be looking at sexual reproduction in plants. Did you know that there are an estimated 390,900 plant species known to science? This diversity of plant species is in part due to sexual reproduction. In plants, sexual reproduction is carried out in the flowers. The flowers contain the sexual organs. Let's start with labeling the different parts of a flower. The petals and the sepals help protect the flower bud and can be brightly colored or scented to attract pollinators. The stem and the receptacle are the parts that connect the flower to the rest of the plant. The stamen is the male part of the flower. It consists of the anther, where pollen is produced, and the filament, which is the stalk that supports the anther. These structures are responsible for the production and the positioning of pollen, the male gamete. The female part of the flower is called the carpel, and this consists of 3 parts: the stigma, a sticky landy for pollen, the style, where the pollen grain descends, and the ovary, where the female gametes or sex cells are located. Within the ovary, ovules produce female gametes. So how does pollination work? Pollination is a transfer of pollen from the male anther of one flower to the female stigma of another. Flowers can be pollinated in different ways, by wind and water, or by pollinators such as insects, birds, and other animals. Flowers pollinated by pollinators are structurally different from those pollinated by wind or water. Look at the differences in size, scent, and color of the petals, and the positioning of the stamen and style. Here are some key differences. Why do you think they are different? Did you know that pollinators are very important to our food supply? They pollinate plants that are responsible for bringing us 1 out of every 3 bites of food. Once a plant has been pollinated, fertilization can occur. Fertilization results in the production of seeds. A mature pollen grain containing 2 male sex cells has landed on the female stigma of the same species. The pollen grain grows a pollen tube that goes down the female style to the ovary, where it enters through an opening called the micropyle. The male sex cells travel from the pollen grain down to the pollen tube to the female ovule. Here, one male sex cell fuses with the female egg, fertilizing it. This develops into a seed. The other male sex cell attaches to 2 cells in the embryo sac, forming an endosperm. This provides the starchy food for the seed to grow. The ovary enlarges and becomes a fruit, surrounding the internal seeds. The fruit and seeds are dispersed in many ways, some even by humans, where they will again grow into a new plant under the correct conditions, completing the long cycle of sexual reproduction in plants. So there we have sexual reproduction in plants. Pollination has to happen before fertilization. The male pollen is produced in the anther, where it is then dispersed during pollination. The female parts of the flower are the stigma, style, and the ovary.
Next, we will discuss the male reproductive system. Okay, so this is the male reproductive system and it is composed of different parts. Pero pag-aaralan lang natin yung konting parts of the male reproductive system. First, we have the penis. This is the internal root and external shaft and glands. Okay, so this is the penis, yung label. Okay, just look at the label. We also have the root. Okay, yung root, it extends internally into pelvic cavity. So medyo nasa ilalim siya. Okay? I think wala lang siya dito sa picture na to pero nasa ilalim na part siya. We also have the shaft. Okay, yung shaft, this is the length of the penis between the glands and the body. Okay, so yung gaan yung haba, okay? The length of the penis between the glands and the body. Ito yung glands, okay? Ito yung glands sa body, okay? And we also have cavernous bodies. So yung cavernous bodies, this is the structures in the shaft of the penis that engage with blood during sexual arousal. So wala din siya dito sa picture but yun yung structures in the shaft of the penis, okay, na nag-e-engage sa blood. Okay, yung blood flow doon nangyayari during sexual arousal. Okay, so that is cavernous bodies. Next, we have the foreskin. Okay, that is the foreskin. You can see it in the picture. Foreskin, it is a covering of the skin over the penile glands. Okay, yung skin over the penile glands. Okay? Or yung, para siya yung extra skin. That is foreskin. Corona naman, it is the rim of the penile glands. Okay, so corona, ito lang siya yung buong, yan, buong kasama yung foreskin, yung glands, urethral opening, yan, yung buong yan. That is corona. And last, we have the frenulum. It is a highly sensitive thin strip of skin that connects the glands to the shaft and the underside of the penis. So, frenulum, I think wala din siya dito, but siya yung sensitive part, okay? Because siya ay thin strip of skin lang na na nagko-connect sa glands hanggang sa shaft, okay? Ito yung glands and yung shaft, okay? Underside of the penis, dito sa ilalim na part. Okay? So this is the description of all the parts of the male reproductive system. So this is just a few. Next, we will discuss the female reproductive system. Okay? And before we discuss, we have the vulva. Yan. Vulva, it encompasses all female external genital structures, the hairs, fold of skin, and the urinary and vaginal openings. So, vulva, ito yung kabuuan. Okay? Yung nasa labas. Okay? The all-female external, nasa labas, genital structures. That is vulva. Going back, okay, we have yan. So, first, we have the mons veneris. Okay? Okay, mons veneris, it is a triangular mound over the pubic bone above the vulva. So, siya yung nasa pinaka-upper part. Yung nasa may pubic bone above the vulva. So, that is mons veneris. We also have the labia majora and labia minora. Labia majora, the outer lips of the vulva. Okay? Outer lips of the vulva. Yung pinaka-opening. Labia minora is the inner lips. Okay? The one on each side of the vaginal opening. Yung nasa pinaka-loob. Prepuce, this is the skin over the clitoris. Okay. And we have the clitoris. Ito yung highly sensitive part wherein the only function is for sexual pleasure. Okay, so that is the clitoris. Next, we have the shaft. Yung shaft naman sa female reproductive system, ito yung length of the clitoris between the glands of the body. Okay? Yung length, gaano kahaba from clitoris hanggang sa glands and the body. Okay? Glands naman, it is the head of the clitoris, richly endowed with nerve endings. We also have kruka. Kruka is the innermost tips of the cavernous bodies that connect to the pubic bone. So, ito yung nasa innermost tips. Okay? But again, ito yung parts na to ay external structures. So, kruka, that is the innermost tips of the cavernous bodies that connect to the pubic bones. We also have vestibule, the area of the vulva inside the labia minora. So, ito yung vestibule, yung sinasakop. Okay? Yung area ng vulva na nasa loob ng labia minora. And last, we have urethra, the tube through which urine passes from the bladder to outside the body. Now, we have the internal structures. Okay, so the internal structures of our female reproductive system, we have first the vagina. Okay, so this is the vagina. Okay, it is a stretchable canal in the female that opens at the vulva and extends about 4 inches into the pelvis. Okay, so it extends. Okay, it extends about 4 inches into the pelvis. Rugae naman, it is the folds of tissue in the vagina. Okay, so yung mga itong tissue na yan, yung mga nakakulubot, yung pink na yan sa vagina, that is rugae or the vaginal rugae. Okay? Cervix, okay, so this is the cervix, the small end of the uterus located at the back of the vagina. So, nandito siya sa likod. Small end of the uterus. Uterus naman, it is a pear-shaped organ inside the female pelvis within which the fetus develop. Okay, so uterus, okay, nandito siya sa part na ito. Okay, that is uterus. So, siya yung responsible, okay, dito nagkakaroon ng development ng fetus. So, dito yung uterus. Fallopian tubes, two tubes which the egg and sperm travel extending from the sides of the uterus. Okay, so this is the fallopian tubes. Okay, yan yung fallopian tubes. Yan. So dito nangyayari yung pagdaan, okay? Dito yung nagta-travel yung egg and sperm extending from the sides of the uterus. So, ito rin siya, yung uterine tube or fallopian tube. And last, we have the ovaries. Okay, that is the ovary. Female gonads that produce ova and sex hormones. Okay, so ovary, siya yung nagpo-produce ng sex hormones in female reproductive system. Now we have the primary characteristics and the secondary sexual characteristics. Yung primary characteristics, ito ay nakukuha natin from birth, yung natural reproductive system natin. Okay? If you are a male, you have a male reproductive system by birth. If you are a female, you have a female reproductive system by birth. Okay? So that is primary characteristics. Next, we have secondary sexual characteristics. Ito naman ay sa puberty. Okay? So, nakukuha natin sa puberty. Dito nag-iiba yung ating boses. Okay? Sa mga lalaki, lumalalim. Diba? Bumababa yung boses. Nagkakaroon ng hair, facial hair. Okay? So, nagkakaroon ng changes because of puberty. That is secondary sexual characteristics. So, because of puberty, ito yung mga nangyayari. Okay, sa ating ito yung mga nangyayari sa ating katawan. And magkaiba yan sa lalaki at sa babae. Sa lalaki, nagiging more pronounced ang body hair, nagkakaroon sa beard, sa chest, 'di ba? Etc. sa body, and usually more coarse. Kapag sa girls naman, less pronounced ang body hair, 'di ba? Mostly sa pubic parts, pubic region, sa hair all over is usually finer. Okay, medyo maninipis. Sa lalaki naman, heavier musculature, okay? Bumibigat yung mga muscles, nagkaka-form, right? Sa babae naman, lighter. Sa lalaki, angular features, nagkakaroon ng jaw, okay? Ng jawline, triangular mid-region, right? Sa babae, rounded features, softer facial features, hourglass mid-region, okay? Sa lalaki, nagkakaroon ng nagna-narrow yung hips. Sa babae, nagwa-wider for childbearing. Boys naman, muscular pectorals, yung chest. More pronounced breast with more fatty tissue sa girls. And last, sa boys, nagkakaroon ng less fat tissue or overall and nagdi-deeper yung voice. Sa girls naman, more fat tissue overall and nag-higher yung voice. So that is the changes na na-experience natin during puberty stage. Yan. So puberty, that is the physical maturation in which an individual becomes physiological capable of sexual reproduction. So physical maturation. Nagmamature tayo physically, nagbabago yung mga body parts natin, there are changes sa katawan natin. And these are because of neurosecretory factors and or hormones, modulation of somatic growth, and initiation of the development of the sex glands. Okay? So, puberty stages sa female, okay, ito yung stage 1. The P1, prepubertal. P2, early development of subareolar, breast bud, or small amounts of pubic hair and axillary hair. So, nagkakaroon ka na ng hair during this stage. Stage 3 naman, it increased in size of palpable breast tissue. Okay, so lumalaki na yung breast part. And areolar, increased amount of dark pubic hair and axillary hair. Stage 4, further increase in breast size and areolae that protrude above breast level. Okay, so nagkakaroon na ng nag-i-increase yung breast size. Stage 4. And last stage, adult stage, pubic hair with extension to upper thigh. So nagkakaroon ka na ng mga pubic hair during this last stage. So that is the puberty stages in female. We also have puberty stages in male. Okay, first stage, prepubertal testicular length less than 2.5 cm. Okay, stage 2, nag-i-increase na sa testicular size, scrotum slightly pigmented, few long and dark pubic hair. Okay, kakaroon na din ng hair. Okay, yung scrotum, nagkakaroon na ng slightly pigmented. Stage 3, testicular length 3.3 to 4 cm, lengthening of the penis, increase of pubic hair. So, humahaba na. Okay? Testicular length, nasa 3.3 to 4 cm na. And nagkakaroon na din ng increase in pubic hair. And the last stage, okay, testicular length 4.1 to 4.5 cm, increase in length and thickening of the penis, and adult amount of pubic hair. So this is the last stage. So that is the puberty stages in male. So now, pag-aaralan naman natin yung 5 stages of Freud's psychosexual theory of development. Okay? So, si Freud, meron siyang 5 psychosexual development na kailangan daw pagdaanan ng lahat ng tao. Each stage of psychosexual development must be met successfully for proper development. If we lack proper nurturing and parenting during a stage, we may become stuck in or fixated on that stage. So, kailangan successful yung nangyari. May proper development. Kapag daw kulang, okay, kulang ka sa nurture, kulang ka sa parenting during this stage, nagkakaroon ng fixation, nai-stuck ka sa stage na to. Okay? So mamaya pag-aaralan natin yung concept ng fixation. Paano ba siya nai-stuck sa stage na to? So, we have 5 stages of Freud's psychosexual development. That is oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. So, para mas matandaan nyo to, okay, I will share to you kung paano ko siya sinaulo dati. That is OA, phalage. Again, OA, phalage. Oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. So, oral, ito ang erogenous zones niya. Okay, yung erogenous zone niya or yung pleasure na nararamdaman niya ay nasa mouth. Okay? Kasi 'di ba, ang baby dito nag-i-start siya sa baby. Okay, mouth. Mouth ang kanyang erogenous zone. Doon niya nararamdaman yung pleasure through eating, okay? Eating, 'di ba? Dito siya yung breastfeeding, right? So, yun yung kanyang pleasure principle. Sucking, kaya yung mga baby nagsasuck, okay? So, this is the first stage, oral stage. Kasi yung erogenous zone ng bata ay nasa mouth. Next, we have the anal. So, anal, ang erogenous zone ay nasa anus. Okay? And nangyayari to through toilet training or through defecation. So, kapag tinuturuan nyo yung bata na kung paano yung proper, okay, na pagde-defecate, okay, so that is toilet training. So, yung pleasure principle niya ay nasa anus. Next, we have the phallic. Ang erogenous zone naman sa phallic stage ay nasa genitals. Okay, so nagkakaroon na ito ng sexual attraction toward opposite sex parent. Okay, ma'am, bakit po ganyan? 'Di ba po bawal po 'yon na naa-attract yung bata sa kanyang magulang? Okay? But according to Freud, okay, so according to Freud, meron tayong tinatawag na Oedipus complex and Electra complex. Sinasabi niya na yung bata daw, okay, yung bata daw, siya ay sexually attracted sa opposite sex parent. Ibig sabihin, kung ako ay baby girl, okay, ako ay baby girl, so I am attracted to my father. Okay, so kaya dito na bubuo yung mga concept ng daddy's girl, mommy's boy, okay, because of Oedipus complex and Electra complex. Ano po yung dalawa? Oedipus complex, ito ay nagkakaroon ng attraction of a male child towards his mother. Okay, male child towards his mother, that is Oedipus complex. Electra complex, female child towards her father. Okay? So this concept of Oedipus complex and Electra complex, this is very complicated. Okay? And hindi ko na siya padadaanan talagang detailed na discussion sa inyo kasi this is more on the psychology side. Okay? Pag-aaralan nyo naman to sa psychology and specifically, I think kapag sa TOP, Theories of Personality. So, pag-aaralan nyo naman to sa psych. Okay, but to my class sa CREAM, okay, hindi ko na siya ipapaka-detail din kasi ang important lang naman, malaman nyo yung phallic stage, ang pleasure principle dito is genitals. Okay, sexual attraction towards the opposite sex parent. Next, we have the latency. Ito naman yung bata, okay? So, napasok na siya sa school. Okay, napasok na siya sa school, may mga friends na siya. So, yung pleasure principle niya ay nasa social activities na ginagawa niya. Okay? So, yung more on sa mga friends niya, pakikipagkaibigan, pakikipag-usap sa classmates, pakikipaglaro, okay? More on the school and the playing. And last, we have the genital. Okay? So, dito naman, bumabalik yung erogenous zone ng bata sa kanyang genitals. Kasi, dito, nakikita niya na yung ibang tao. Okay? Sexually attracted na siya sa ibang tao, hindi na dun sa parent niya. Okay? So, that is the last stage or the genital stage. Again, 5 stages of Freud psychosexual development. We have the OA, phalage, oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. Okay, so paano po? Okay, paano po nagkakaroon ng fixation on that stage? Paano po nai-stuck yung tao? For example, oral. Okay, oral. Kung ikaw ng bata ay hindi okay o hindi proper yung pag-feed sa'yo, okay, yung breastfeeding sa'yo, okay, hindi on time, right? So, parang kulang ka sa breastfeed. So, na-fixate ka doon sa stage na yon sa oral. Kasi hindi mo na-met successfully yung proper development on that stage. So, you are still fixated on that stage. And paano mo siya makikita ngayong matanda ka na? Okay? Ikaw ay dalas-dalas ang bibig, okay? Hindi mo makontrol ang bibig mo, talkative ka. Dito din pumapasok yung vices mo na nagyoyosi ka kasi kailangan na nasa-satisfy mo yung pleasure ng mouth mo, okay? Kaya nagyoyosi ka, nagve-vape ka, okay? Kaya talkative ka, dada ka ng dada, okay? So, doon nangyayari ang fixation. Okay? So, that is 5 stages. Erogenous zones is different from sexual fetishes. Again, magkaiba po ang erogenous zones sa sexual fetishes. Ano po ba yung sexual fetishes? Ito yung mga inappropriate object. Okay? Inappropriate object that is substituted for a person and used for sexual gratification. Okay? For example, shoes. Okay? So, na-in-love ka sa shoes, nagkakaroon ka ng sexual gratification by collecting shoes. Okay? Papakasalan mo yung shoes. Okay? That is sexual fetishes. Kapag erogenous zone naman, it is a body part. Okay? Body part that arouses sexual curiosity and demands attention to the whole body. Okay? So, body part siya. Foot, okay? Yung kanina, di ba, mouth, anus, genitals, yun yung mga erogenous zones. Describe how simple pressure to these parts of the body could arouse complete orgasm. So, kapag naka-experience yung mga erogenous zones na to, itong mga body parts na to, naka-experience ng simple pressure, okay, nagkakaroon ng arousal. Okay, na-aroused ka. And it can also lead to complete orgasm. Culture determines the unique fixation for erogenous zones. Okay? So, again, gaya nga ng sinabi ko kanina, kapag yung fixation, di ba, dun sa oral, ikaw ay hindi na breastfeed ng maigi. So, depende din sa culture mo kung paano nagkakaroon ng fixation. Human increases their likeness through body paint, cosmetics, mutilation, or other procedures. So, nagkakaroon ng ng additional attraction, okay? Kapag ikaw ay naka-makeup, 'di ba? Kaya ang daming nagme-makeup or kaya kapag ganito yung katawan mo, right? So, that is erogenous zones. Now we will understand human sexual response. So, learning and conditioning, it is ability to be modified by experiences. All adolescents experience sexual feelings. Men and women experience sexual arousal very differently. So, lahat tayo nakaka-experience naman tayo ng sexual feelings. Okay? And iba yung nangyayari na sexual arousal sa babae at iba din yung sa lalaki. Okay? Sexual response cycle, this is the sequence of physical and emotional changes that occur as a person becomes sexually aroused and participates in sexually stimulating activities. So, sexual response cycle, ito yung sequence, yung pagkakasunod-sunod na physical and emotional changes na nangyayari sa tao kapag siya ay sexually aroused. Okay? So, yan. Ito ang human sexual response cycle according kay Master and kay Johnson. Okay? So, first cycle is the excitement phase. Excitement phase, it is the body's initial response to sexual arousal. So, ito yung pinakauna. Okay? Yung response mo, yung response ng body mo sa sexual arousal na nararamdaman mo. So, nakakaranas ka dito ng increase in heart rate, bumibilis ang tibok ng puso, okay? Parang tumataas ang blood pressure, okay? Kasi yun yung nararamdaman mo. May nararamdaman kang sexual arousal. That is excitement. Next is the plateau phase. This is the sexual excitement prior to orgasm. It is the intensification of the changes. Okay? So dito may activity na. Okay? Nagkakaroon na ng sexual excitement. Okay? Hindi na response lang. Nagkakaroon ka na ng sexual excitement and intensification of the changes. That is the plateau phase. Orgasm phase naman, ito na yung exciting part. It is the intensification of the changes. Okay? So, yung dito na nangyayari yung vaginal contractions in females and ejaculation in males. Okay? So, ito na yung climax, the orgasm. And last, we have the resolution wherein the body returns to its non-excited stage. Okay? So, dito, bumabalik na yung katawan natin sa non-excited stage. That is resolution. Yun lang. So, that's it for lesson 8. And I hope you learned a lot from this video lecture. And I highly suggest if you are curious about what we discussed, you can free naman to do your research about everything, about the topics that interest you. Okay? So, with that, I hope na sana mapanood nyo itong video lecture na to. This is lesson 8. We will have a graded recitation next meeting para ma-assess ko if talagang napanood nyo itong ating video lecture. Okay? So with that, thank you so much for watching this video lecture and I hope you'll have a great day ahead. Thank you.